With less than 3 days to the end of the year, many Nigerians hope that the new year will mark not just a change in calendar, but a change in security and welfare. The World Bank says that one of the ways to achieve rapid economic progress is to improve the purchasing power of individuals. How could the purchasing power of Nigerians be enhanced, and what should be the focus of the government in 2020? To discuss the economic outlook for 2020, with me tonight is Babajide Ogusowo, Channels TV's data and information specialist. Now, this is a new one. I'm sure you do have an explanation for that sitting on the table. But let's begin with the realistic growth expectations and implications for 2020.
You know what? For just 3 seconds, I would like everyone to focus on this and imagine what this looked like 12 months ago. Clearly, it was shorter. So how did growth happen? Was it the soil? Was it weather? Just 2 words: the right environment. And that's the nutrients in the soil, water, weather. And that makes us understand that growth isn't as complicated as we think it is. For growth to happen, we only need 2 words: the right environment. And so that allows me to make 2 conclusions about 2020. The first is, if we do not have the right environment, there will be no growth next year. On the second hand, if we have, like this plant, the right environment, then there shall be growth in Nigeria next year.
Do we have the right environment?
So one of the ways to look at our environment is to understand the significance of 2019. 2019 was the beginning of the 3rd decade in Nigeria's 4th Republic. And so let's review the performance of the previous 2 decades, 1999 to 2009. Then we'll look at 2009 to 2018, and then we'll be able to make forecasts about what to expect. And if we clearly look at that, between 1999 to 2018, the 1st decade, we can see the sort of growth numbers that we had. In 2002, for instance, we had a 15% growth rate. Now let's focus on the 2nd decade, 2009 to 2018. And we see that even in the 2nd decade, in 2012 or in 2010, for instance, we see a growth rate of 10%. What does all of this mean? It means that in the 1st decade of the 4th Republic was when we had our fastest growth. In the 2nd decade was when we had our 2nd fastest growth. But what has happened since the beginning of the 3rd decade? We've seen significantly slower growth rates, which means that the environment has changed. And so we need to ask ourselves the right questions. What sort of environment did we have in the 1st decade, and what sort of environment did we have in the 2nd decade that fast-tracked that sort of growth? The challenge is, some scholars believe that it was the effect of corruption that stimulated some of that growth. But again, we cannot totally say that it was just because of corruption we had those high levels of growth. It was because there were some policies and there were some reform programs that were introduced that led us to that sort of fast growth that we had in the first 2 decades.
Now, one of the things that happened this year was an increase in the minimum wage. Will that have a higher impact on, will that impact be felt in 2020?
You know, I'd like us perhaps rephrase it in a different way, and that is, are Nigerians spending more or less? And if we look at the evidence of the past, say, half a decade, and if we review that and we take a careful look at that, Amachi, here's what you find. The evidence shows that Nigerians are really not spending so much money. They are not increasing their spending. And so let's look at it from 2013, for instance. Between 2013 and 2014, the evidence in front of us shows that spending only increased by 1%. The subsequent year, spending as well increased by 1%. We're talking about the difficulty that families have in spending money. So 2014, families increased their spending by only 1%. In 2015, compared to 2014, they increased again by only 1%. In 2016, we see families spent less money. And the last evidence we have in 2018 shows that families only increased their spending by 5%. What does this mean? For instance, families that spent an average of 100 naira in 2017 What it means is that in 2018, they only spent 105 naira. And the significance of this is because families account for the biggest size of the economy of the country. And so when families are not spending money, then the economy will not grow. So the focus as well is for us to have that right environment. Families need to spend money, and for them to spend money, then we need to get more families employed. We need to get more individuals to be involved in doing some sort of economic activity in the country. That is the secret.
And hopefully this right environment will also provide growth for businesses, will also provide opportunities for entrepreneurs to also increase and benefit from the economy.
You know, but in the final words, just because that will be till 2020. 2020, the secret should be before you make yourself or before you make another person a better person, you need to first of all invest yourself and make yourself a better person. In the words of the famous Chinese actress Yao Chen. So clearly, individuals in Nigeria need to make themselves better before they start trying to make other people better.
Babajide, see you in the year 2020.
And next week, I'll share some deep secrets about the economy with you too.
Can't wait. Thank you. Thank you again for being with us on the News at 10.